Happy Saturday, everybody.
Yeah, happy
Greetings. Brother Abu and Brother Malachi back at it again. Yeah, it's been a little time since we got together. How's everybody? How's the family?
Very good. I hope you likewise doing well.
Good. It's funny. This week I received a study from Brother Gist.
From the Bible MVP.
Right.
Seventh Day Adventist Bible MVP.
That's
Did
right.
he send you the whole study? Because I understand that he sent you a fragment of the study.
Well, no, he didn't send me the whole study. It was just like little excerpts of a few pages.
Fragments, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we're going to look at one of those fragments today, I understand.
Yeah, we're going to check it out and, see what we come up with,
And what was the fragment on that we're going to be looking at today? Do you remember the topic?
Well, it was dealing with a text that actually we had discussed a little while ago on another video. Part of it dealt with, 1 Peter 3:18. And, some of the verses in question, dealt with the topic of the spirits in prison. And also where Jesus was in between his resurrection and
his death and his resurrection. Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah.
So because he's a Seventh-day Adventist, he disputes the plain reading of 1 Peter 3, in which Christ dies, then goes to a quote-unquote prison to preach to the spirits of people who died in the time of Noah, and then is resurrected after that.
Right.
So
his brother Gis is basically saying that, Christ wasn't in Hades or /Sheol during that period. He, as soon as he died on the cross, he was immediately ascended to heaven.
Yes, and that's what you got on this fragment here, right? That he sent you, where he's appealing to Luke 23, the 44th verses and the 46th verses.
Yes, yeah.
And I see he has some notes here, and I know you got some notes, but this is what he writes here. This is his commentary on Luke 23. He says, "Wow, this scripture is very clear. In Luke 23:44, Jesus died on the cross around the 9th hour. This was the preparation day, which was the day before the Sabbath. In verse 46, the spirit or ghost left his body and went straight up to his Father in heaven. On the preparation that day, he was crucified. So there's no way," now we're quoting Brother Gist here, "there's no way after Jesus died on the cross on the preparation day that his spirit went down into the earth to preach." End quote. Yeah. So I know you got some notes on that. Is it okay if I offer a brief comment on this?
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
My first thought, and I don't want to be disrespectful here, but my first thought was to think, wait a minute, I was under the impression that Seventh-day Adventists are Trinitarian, or at least most of them are, that they believe Jesus is God, and so this idea of, my very first thought was that if you believe Jesus is with the Father, then you can't believe he's preaching to the souls of persons who've died and who are held elsewhere in some prison. It makes me wonder if he believes in the divinity of Jesus, and if he denies the omnipresence of Christ as God. That's what so. And what came to mind is, amongst the Greek Orthodox, they have these beautiful liturgies that go back to John Chrysostom and St. Basil the Great, these 1,500-year-old liturgies. And one of these liturgies has a line that I think is relevant here, where it describing Christ around this time, in between his death and resurrection. We'll put the Greek text on the screen, but the English translation is, "In the tomb bodily, in Hades with thy soul is God, in paradise with the thief, and on the throne with the Father and the Spirit was thou, O Christ, filling all things, thyself uncircumscribed." Right? Because he's divine, from this perspective, he cannot be contained. He's everywhere. Now, Brother Gist might say he doesn't care what appears in some 1,500-year-old, Greek liturgy, but this is ancient Christianity. This is real ancient Christianity. But I understand he might say, well, who cares about that? I want to know what's in the Bible. So a text that came to mind for me was in Colossians 1, right? Specifically the 16th and 17th verses, right? Because verse 16, and I'd love to know if Brother Gist agrees with this, if he interprets these texts the same way. But Colossians 1:16 rather matter-of-factly states that all things were created by Christ, or created through Christ, if you will, right? So basically, Christ participated in the creation of all things, according to Colossians 1:16. And then it says in verse 17 that all things are held together in him, right? In him, all things consist. So he's also the sustainer of everything. Now, the reason why this is relevant here is because, think about this. The implication of this, if a person accepts this text, and if a person believes in the divinity of Jesus, it would mean that even when Christ was in his mother's womb, or even when he was in his mother's arms as a baby, whether it be in Bethlehem or being held as a child, en route going to Egypt or coming back from Egypt, even in those times where Christ was in the form of a baby or a small child, even then, if a star came into existence at the other side of the universe, he participated in the creation of that star. And if a star existed on the other side of the universe, according to Colossians 1:17, Christ himself was sustaining and holding that star together, right? Everything that came into existence through Christ, and everything that exists that's contingent, at least, is held together by Christ, right?
Right.
And so, if you understand that, it seems preposterous to think that, well, if Christ is in this location, he can't be in that location. That was just my thought. And so, it struck me as cheap. So, forgive me for the segue, but that's what I just wanted to say, that there's nothing, it's been understood for well over a millennia, at least amongst Christians, that there's nothing precluding Christ from being in multiple locations at the same time, precisely because he's God, and God can have he can have a semblance of omnipresence. He can be literally omnipresent, or at the very least bilocation and multi-location within, the created realm. But aside from that, maybe he's not impressed with that, but another relevant text would clearly be Ephesians 4. It says, starting at verse 8 of Ephesians 4, the 4th chapter of Ephesians, it says, referring to Christ, wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Now that he ascended, what is it but that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? He that descended is the same also that ascended up far above all the heavens, that he might fill all things. Now here's the central part about that. The text is making clear that saying that Christ ascended does not preclude him from also descending into the lower parts of the earth, which I would take as a euphemism for that quote-unquote prison where he met with the souls of people who had died in the time of Noah. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to you to discuss, what you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, Brother Abu. So I wanted to touch on a point about the spirits in prison that you were just talking about. The text in 1 Peter 3 says they were disobedient, which would explain why they were in, quote unquote, a prison.
Yeah.
What I want Brother Gist is to explain is whether these spirits were actual disembodied spirits or if they were conscious, embodied human persons. But moving on from that.
And if he wants to deny they're disembodied spirits, he can, what's the textual evidence for that? But go ahead.
Right, for that, yeah. But moving on from that, he said there's no way Christ descended into the lower parts of the earth, or Sheol, or Hades, after his death. So I wanted to turn to Acts chapter 2, as the Apostle Peter contradicts Brother Gist. Now, Acts chapter 2:27 reads that thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. See, Peter is actually quoting Psalms 16, verse 10. And applying it to Jesus. He makes it clear that this text was not actually per se referring to David, but rather it foreshadowed Christ. To show this, let's read verses 29, 30, and 31 of Acts chapter 2. And it says, Peter says, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him that of the fruit of his loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne. He, seeing this before, spake of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption. See, right there, he's showing right there that his soul was not left in hell.
And you notice the distinction between soul and flesh there, or soul and body.
Yeah, the distinction. Also, and by the way, in that Hebrew text of that Psalm 16:10, it says, Ki lo ta'azob nafshi li she'ol. You will not leave my nefesh in Sheol, my soul.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's another point that I wanted to make. So, the point of appealing to this text is that even Peter clearly recognizes that Christ giving up his spirit and ascending did not mean his soul did not descend into Hades. So even as we see, the Apostle Peter disagrees with Brother Gist's reasoning.
That's an excellent point. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty much.
So hopefully, we'll share this video with Brother Gist, and maybe he can share the full study with us.
Yeah, the full study.
And we'll see the larger spectrum of reasoning that he employs therein.
Yeah, and even there's some other excerpts from his study that maybe he might want to send to us, and we can even present. And,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If he shares the
videos.
whole study with us, maybe we can look through it and see what else is relevant, what else is salient, what else warrants a reply.
And go over. But pretty much, I think that this shows where Jesus was at between his death and resurrection. So it's no mystery anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the text in Luke that he appealed to does not preclude the plain reading of 1 Peter 3:18.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, I guess on that note, we'll close it out. And again, if anybody has any questions or any comments that they like to leave in the comment section of the videos, feel free to do so.
And God bless.
God bless.